Welcome to Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben, where each week it's my great pleasure to meet fascinating people who tell us about the challenges they're facing with their work-life balance. I'm Dr. Ben Sinclair, and I wonder, do you struggle with your priorities? On the one hand, focusing on your work, business or career, namely your wealth, or on the other hand, looking after your health, which is so important. Over the past 20 years as a GP, I've seen many people spending too long on their screens, cutting corners on their sleep, diet or exercise. The result? Their work life's going well, but their health can suffer. I sincerely hope that my guests' personal and professional experiences may help you to improve your own health and life. Now, if you follow football, you'll know the old saying, it's a game of two halves. And my guest today is a fascinating man who's lived his life in two halves. Born in Birmingham and now living in Sutton Coldfield, he's built up an extremely successful business with a £4 million turnover and employed 25 staff. But he was working up to 100 hours a week and living what he calls a crazy globetrotting lifestyle. Chris Williams, a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Now, was that level of commitment sustainable?
It wasn't, Dr. Ben. I'd describe that situation as sort of destroying my life, really. So it was a really stressful time.
Wow. Now, as a junior doctor, I did 100-hour weeks, but we didn't do them forever. You kept going. So we're going to talk more about, the effects on your life later in the show. But first, I think your work life story begins at a German beer festival. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I'd hitchhiked over to the beer festival in Munich, and I'd met quite a few Brits over there who were working, and they said, Munich's a great place to live and work, and what do you think about going over there? And I don't know if you remember Auf Wiedersehen Pet,
yes,
which was about bricklayers going over there. I started going over there as a maintenance fitter. So
right, okay. So now you were a maintenance fitter. How did that go for you?
So when I left school, the careers advice was, there were 3 buses outside. There was a Cincinnati bus, a post office bus, and a Dunlop bus. And I just happened to get on the Dunlop bus and sign up as an apprentice maintenance fitter. And I don't know if anybody's ever had that feeling where I felt like a square peg in a round hole, or a round peg in a square hole. I've been told it's great to get a skill, great to get a trade, but it just didn't seem to work for me. So I wanted to escape, really, and try something else. And so I went over to Germany to apply my trade and just get a bit of experience and learn a new language.
Wow. And what happened then? Did you carry on in Germany?
I didn't. No, I spent 3 years working over there. I learned German while I was there, and I decided that living in Germany wasn't for me, and I wanted to come back to the UK, and I wanted to get into sales.
Right, okay.
And I started applying to German subsidiary companies in the UK to see whether I could get a job, and I was offered a job by a company that sold textile machinery. And I had an advantage. Nobody'd met a Brummie that could speak German, and so that was a great advantage. And that's how I got into sales.
Fantastic. Now, I know you actually launched your own business in 1990 in the UK textile sector. Tell us a bit more about that. And I know there was a big part of that was impacted by Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah. So what happened was, I think when you work for somebody, I was one of those people who always thought I could do it better than my boss, and I realised that when you have a job, you're building somebody else's dream. You're not actually building your own dream. So I always harboured this intent to run my own business. And then we were taken over by a major competitor. And that was, I think events change our lives. So that was the event that I made that decision, right, I'll set myself up in business. And so I set up my own company. We called it the CTI Group. And we were doing really, really well.
Wow.
As you mentioned in the intro, we had 25 employees, we had a great turnover, we were making money. And I remember moving into a brand new offices which I'd bought, and on the same day we moved in, Marks and Spencer's made an announcement that instead of sourcing their clothing in the UK, because we all used to know them as made in Britain, right, they said they're going to start manufacturing offshore, and my business changed overnight. And I don't know if you've ever read that book, Who Moved My Cheese, but I recognise the business hadn't gone away, it just moved. So instead of in the past, 90% of my sales came from the UK, just 10% export. And overnight, it was now 90% export.
Wow.
And just 10% UK sales. So, and that's how I got into this global treadmill, because instead of driving up to Manchester or down at Leicestershire to sell equipment, I was now travelling to the four corners of the world. So I'd be taking a flight from Birmingham via Dubai. I'd be going to places like Sri Lanka. I'd be going to China, Philippines, North Africa, all of these low-cost manufacturing countries to sell the equipment that I was selling. And I had a business to sustain, so I had absolutely no choice but to do it. And when you're traveling that much, the jet lag takes a toll on your life. But not only that, the entertaining that you have to do. So I'd arrive at a country, I'd be jet lagged, I'd have meetings straight away. Then I was expected to take my clients out in the evening. Each evening it was a different client. I put on a lot of weight. I was too tired to do any exercise, and I was mentally exhausted because I didn't really know what time zone I was on, and that just had to stop.
I used to do some work in Cambodia, and the worst bit about that was coming back to the UK, because the time zones going out there is easier to manage, but coming back was terrible. Did that impact you on the way home? How did you feel when you got back home?
Hugely. I don't know how I managed it. It was, when I look back and reflect on it, I may have only been sleeping on average 4 hours a night, and used to hear, Margaret Thatcher only slept so many hours a night. So I thought it was a bit of bravado. I can cope with this. But I used to get ill a lot. My immune system was low. And as I said, I put on a lot of weight. And it really wasn't healthy. It was taking a toll on my life.
Interesting. People like Margaret Thatcher and Churchill would often survive by having an afternoon nap, which is actually protective. So we always hear the 4-hour statement at night. But actually, the most productive people, if they're doing that, they have some sort of siesta lifestyle, or, a nap in the afternoon which compensates.
Yeah, I didn't have time to do the afternoon nap. And when I was travelling on planes, I used to see people relaxing and sleeping. I was working on my laptop.
Yeah.
It's just constant work to maintain the sales.
I mean, what did that do to your life?
Well, I can remember one year I was one day short of being a non-tax-paying resident in the UK. So it literally stole my life, because I was having to jump on a plane on a Sunday afternoon, Birmingham Airport, via Dubai. I'd go off somewhere. I'd get back Friday night or early Saturday morning. I'd see my family for a very short period of time. Now to be flying off again. And that obviously had a huge impact on my life, my family, my relationships.
Welcome back to Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben. Now, for those of you just joining us, my guest today is the great entrepreneur, Chris Williams, whose motto is, I'm going to live to 100 or die trying. Chris, how did your business success impact your family life? And did it make you see things differently?
It did, absolutely. I remember I was skiing with my daughter. By this time, my relationship with my wife had changed in terms that we became more business partners than lovers. And we'd separated, and I'm skiing with my daughter Daisy. She was 15, and I don't know if anybody out there, when you have children, you can hold your baby in one arm. And I remember that day when Daisy was born. 15 years later, she's beating me down a ski slope, and I literally said, "Where the F have I been for 15 years?" Building a business, I kidded myself it was for my family and for my children. It was really for my own ego, but I wouldn't accept that at that time. And that was my light bulb moment. I remember phoning Karen, my ex-wife, business partner at the time. I said, right, as soon as I get back from this holiday, I'm never getting on a plane again unless it's for pleasure. We're going to sell what we can of the business, and I'm going to look at a completely different lifestyle. And that's what I did.
Wow, massive change.
Yeah.
So, Chris, how did you change your life after that light bulb moment on the ski slopes? Did you keep your business?
I didn't keep my business. I sold that business for what I could. I hadn't sort of set it up to sell, but I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by an author, Robert Kiyosaki. And I think, like most people, I'd read the book and not taken any action. And in that book, it talked about getting passive income streams. And it talked about that wealth is measured in time and not money. And the way Robert Kiyosaki described that to me was that if your outgoings, for example, were £24,000 a year and you'd got £24,000 in the bank, it meant that if you couldn't work again, your wealth was 12 months long. And equally, if you had £48,000 in the bank and your outgoings were 24, then your wealth was 2 years long. So I thought, I need to find passive income, this royalty income that pop stars get, but I can't sing and I can't write books. So I thought, I needed to find a business model where I could actually be earning money while I was on the ski slope. And I didn't have to, like most people do, exchange my time for money. And I got involved in a business model called network marketing, which enabled me to build an organisation and then get paid every single month, no matter what I did. And having that time freedom, it's this. I didn't have to make a choice then about health versus wealth. I could have health and wealth. It's a bit like having your cake and eating it, but of course the cake was gluten-free and fat-free.
It was a healthy cake.
It was a healthy cake, but I got both.
Wow, I mean, this is the dream, Chris. So many people listening are struggling. They're being paid, by the hour, or their worth is measured in what they can produce. You've managed to flip that into earning while you sleep.
Yeah, and I'd encourage people I know a lot of business owners who've got lots of money, but it's not how much money you've got, it's how you earn that money. So if you're exchanging your time for money, if you can't focus on your family, if you can't focus on your health, if it's taking a toll on your life, then it's time to take another look, and that's exactly what I did.
And our listeners may be familiar with the famous book, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Are you Britain's Tim Ferriss now?
I'm not, but he did encourage me to learn how to swim. So rather than the 4-hour work week, I'm more the 10-hour work week.
Still pretty impressive. 10 hours. That's still pretty good. So, how does your 10-hour work week go in terms of priorities now, Chris?
My priorities, I've changed my life completely around, as you said in the intro, and they are family, fitness, and finance. So I put my family first now. Nobody lies on their deathbed and wishes they'd worked harder. They wish they'd spent more time with their family and built their relationships. The other thing is fitness. This is about health versus wealth. I think you can have both health and wealth, and what is wealth without any health at all? That is my real focus as well. And then finance comes after all of that. So, whenever I'm in a little bit of dilemma, choosing what to do, I think of those three priorities, and that's how I work.
It's a really powerful way to think about things. Now, you told me that you did have an ice bath, and I was saying I've got one too because I built one in the garden, although I didn't put ice in mine. But have you still got yours? What are you doing with your Wim Hof ice bathing now?
The story of my ice bath and Wim Hof. So I read the book and I thought, right, I've got to do this. And I got myself the ice bath, and I did go as far as putting some of those, those picnic cooler icy things in it.
Oh, the ice packs. Okay.
I did put some ice packs in it. But it was too cold for me.
Now, you must have lost a lot of weight since you did this 100-hour week, because you're now a very slim, lean man. I've got probably more insulation than you.
Is that your excuse? So it works for you, but
so you actually you got too cold doing ice bath.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about the ice bath is it's to be recommended. However, if you feel anxious about doing it before you do it, or if you're in there literally shivering, I'm not quite sure of the medical benefit of that.
I think it's supposed to be a positive experience rather than a negative one. I know you also do quite a bit of charity work, and you're a big fan of the Minnesota study.
Yeah, so one of the things I found out is that people who contribute, give back, they live 19% longer than the people who don't. So I thought, well, if we all live to 80 years old, that is approximately 4,000 weeks. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound anywhere near as long as 80 years, does it?
Suddenly just crystallised the mind.
It does, doesn't it? But you imagine getting another 19% back. So another 800 weeks of life. So it's not just being altruistic. So I do a lot of charity work. I've co-founded the Buddy Bag Foundation, and I'm a volunteer for the Samaritans. And it's not just to help others, it actually helps me as well.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And there's something about that giving back that's actually good for us physically.
It is.
It may be oxytocin, the love hormone that we, when we're doing something for someone else that we produce. It's a very sort of paternal or maternal hormone, and actually it's good for our whole system.
Yeah,
lowers blood pressure, lowers pulse rate on a physical level.
There you are.
Releases endorphins. So there we go.
That's the scientific evidence.
There we go.
That's what everybody needs to hear.
Also, I mean, it's not just a physical thing; it's a warm feeling you get.
It is.
And it's great that you can give back, because no one is a self-made man. I don't believe in the whole self-made man theory. We are all being, looked after, input into, contributed to by teachers, parents, uncles, friends, mentors along the way. So we need those people in our lives, and you are one of those people, Chris. So and I love that you're so into personal development as well.
Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned the Body Bag Foundation. Tell me more about that. What does it do?
What it does, Ben, is unbelievably, I think, 48,000 children here in the UK have to leave the home they live in to escape domestic violence. And very often, they're literally just in the clothes they're standing up in. So they may have been taken in the middle of the night from their home or after school. They find themselves, 15,000 of them find themselves in a warm, friendly, clean women's refuge, but they've got none of their own possessions. They've even had to leave their favourite toy, maybe even their favourite pet behind. And what we at the Body Bag Foundation do is we provide them, we call it a bag of love, with 12 essential items. We do them for different age groups ranging from 0 to 2 right the way up to 16 for boys and girls. And it includes clean pyjamas, underwear, toiletries, toys. And it's so that these children, mum gets loads of help and support, but it's so that the children recognise that somebody out there loves them. And we're very passionate about what we do. We've been going over 9 years, and one of the things that is important to us is that 100% of any donation we receive goes to the cause. So because of my business interests and my business experience, we run the charity like a business, and it means that our CEO, my ex-wife business partner, doesn't need any income because we get income from another business, and we can run it based on 100% volunteering. And we're making a real difference. We've actually helped over 60,000 children so far in the UK.
Wow.
And that's all because of the network and the support we get through our business contacts.
That is amazing. Tell me about your health. Now, you invited me to do a sportive up at Loch Ness recently. I couldn't do it, but I think you did do it.
I did.
And, you got into cycling and triathlons, I hear.
That's right. So, my motto is I want to live to 100 or die trying. And one of the ways to do that is to keep really fit. And I just like to get involved in anything sporty. And the thing that I like to do is to do the things that people tell you at a certain age you can't do, right? So I'm due to pick up my pension next year, and people tell me, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? So, I took up triathlon and did a half Ironman. I cycled around Loch Ness. I really, really enjoy those challenges. I've run lots of marathons, and I've got a new challenge actually I'm looking at, a new thing.
Come on, what's the new thing?
High rocks?
No, what's that?
It's worth looking up. So it is a fitness challenge which involves 8 disciplines. You run a total of 8 kilometres, and in between you have to do various exercise routines as well. So it really fits to strength building and endurance as well. So it's a combination of strength and endurance. So I'm always looking for challenges like that to challenge my mind and challenge my body.
Is this sort of thing where people wear weight vests and climb ropes and stuff?
You don't have to wear a weight vest. You don't have to climb a rope. The actual exercises are straightforward and easy for people to do. So it means that anybody can get involved, and it's literally just taken off, and it's done in a big stadium. Thousands of people get involved. They do different age groups. And the other thing I think we know is when you exercise or compete with other people, that community spirit is a really, really important thing as well.
And a lot of people enjoy that camaraderie and competition. It's part of the buzz, isn't it?
It's part of the buzz. And whereas with triathlon, you've got to learn how to swim. There's a lot of technique. With high rocks, you don't need any of that. Anybody can jump in and do it. So watch this space.
That sounds great. Now, I hear you were trying to get into a British team at one point. I was,
yeah.
Come on, tell us about that.
Well, I wanted to get into the GB age grouper team for triathlon. And I sort of had this master plan. I thought, well, what I'll do, I'll build up to it. And then when I move into the next group, which is the 65 to 70 group, I'll smash it out of the park. Well, 2 things I realised. All the fit 64-year-olds move into the same group as me.
Okay, so
they were just going to follow me no matter what I did. And also, again, studying longevity and this project that I have, doing long distance triathlon puts a lot of strain on your immune system. And what I recognised, the training was maybe 8 to 12 hours a week. And I saw as well it was taking a toll on my body in terms of getting colds, having lows. So I just thought I need to be keeping myself fit, but I don't need to be exhausting myself. So that's the reason I sort of moved on a little bit from triathlon.
I understand. I think you found something more sustainable. The interesting thing with endurance sport is that if you do the training too fast and you haven't done a lifetime of triathlon, I think you do end up with metabolic consequences. You look at people like Steve Redgrave, he became type 2 diabetic, and now he's got a lot of health problems from all the endurance stuff that he did. And if you drive yourself that much, sometimes you can incur problems, or as you say, unmask even genetic factors that you're holding that might suppress your immune system. Some of the performance enhancing drugs that cyclists take, well, we know Lance Armstrong got cancer.
Yeah.
So these things, they're not to be pursued relentlessly to the detriment of your health. They're supposed to be healthy.
They are. The thing is, I have this saying as well, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you build a business, if you're entrepreneurial, you need to be quite obsessive. And it transfers across to the other things that you do in life. So it's finding that balance. And I'm learning that, as I get a little bit older and with a little bit more experience, I'm learning that's really important.
That's good. When I did triathlon, I found that I went into a different category. But I did find that there were less 40-year-olds doing triathlon. And so I was slightly higher up the rankings on average because I was still doing the same time. And my birthday just flipped me in. But suddenly you're in the 40 to 50. You're competing with 50-year-olds, as a 40-year-old. Or the problem was previously I was 39 competing with 30-year-olds, so it was much harder. And I never won anything, but I enjoyed taking part.
Well, that's it. It's the taking part, isn't it? That's it.
It's good. Now, obviously, part of fitness is your routine. Now, you mentioned you have an important morning routine.
Yeah.
You're using a personal trainer. Tell us more about the things that sustain you, nutrition, sleep, those sort of things.
Yeah, so nutrition I really focus on. For me, it's about having the vitality to carry on doing these things, to achieve my life goals, my fitness goals. And the other thing is sleep. Now, sleep, the jury's out on a number of things about fitness, but not sleep. So I've got a big focus on sleep, but a bit like that cold tub, which I gave away. I haven't nailed the sleep yet, Dr. Ben, so I'm still working on it. It's a life's work. So I've put some things in place, but one of my challenges, I think, is that I'm still a little bit addicted to that smartphone of mine. And it's very hard not to take that to bed with me. So
okay, so you've hit on a massive sort of blocker to good sleep there for so many of us, and so many of the listeners will relate to that. Even if they're not particularly techie or into smartphones, these smartphones are designed to engage us. The algorithms push us to almost become addictive. They want to have more of our time, and so you've got to do some pretty radical things to actually block that, because if that's interfering with your sleep, and sleep is part of longevity, you want to live to 100, we've got to deal with this sleep blocker, haven't we?
Yeah.
What have you tried for detaching yourself from the smartphone? What have you done already?
I tried doing that grayscale thing, but then there's no colours, so it makes it hard to read. I do business on the phone, and you get sucked in, like you say. I've tried not going on to, for example, Facebook, but I run a team group on Facebook, and I've become addicted to the golden buzzer on Britain's Got Talent. So I've tried leaving it out of the room, but then I use it as an alarm. So I've tried a few of these techniques, but they haven't quite worked for me yet.
Okay. It's a bit like that Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. I think you actually need to follow through a bit harder. And it's funny, actually, structurally, when you think about it, these are fairly simple things that we can do, but they might transform your health. Right. So I'm going to give you a challenge. What if you offshored all the apps on your phone back into computer?
Right.
You allocated time to do those jobs, and then you bought a Nokia 8210.
What, those Nokia? I used to have one of those.
Or a 6210.
Can you still get them?
I think you can.
Right, okay.
It's a brick, all right? It's a telephone, and you do text and you do telephone.
I quite like that idea. Yeah.
Now, that's radical.
That is pretty radical. I'm feeling really nervous.
Now, obviously, you're feeling nervous because you're addicted to your phone, right? Suddenly, your psychology is going, oh my God, I can't live without this thing. What am I going to do? So, but this is the thing. They have such a hold on us. We have to take radical action. Now, I knowing you were coming here, I wrote down a few things, but, that is the most radical. If you can't detach yourself by simple steps, and we'll talk about them too, but, go back to basics. A phone is for making calls and sending texts.
Right.
So if you make it about that, and then you allocate time to do those other jobs, you think about it, all the other jobs you've allocated, you've got your 10-hour work week. That might need to include 4 hours of social media maintenance or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's a lot harder to get addicted through a computer than it is through a phone.
That's a really good point, yeah.
So actually, if you detach that and actually allocate time to it, because this is time that it sucks out of us, that we don't want to give. And if you're like me, you go onto Facebook to respond to a work message, and suddenly you're watching reels of fish being caught in Thailand or sharks or whatever. My phone seems to think I love sharks. I think it's because my son's really into them.
Yeah, they know what you like, don't they? They keep throwing it up there. So
they think they do.
That sounds like a good tip.
So I think you've got to avoid this distraction. The other thing is, have you done the obvious thing of just turning off all notifications?
I do that, yeah. I have no notifications on it.
Yeah.
So I'm not disturbed by the notifications.
Right. So there's the basics is keep the phone out of the bedroom, get your charging station somewhere else. Also for EMF, electromagnetic waves, for your longevity project, you want to be at least 3 meters away from your phone sleeping.
Really?
Because the electromagnetic forces it emits are negative for you. They don't help your brain to actually calm when you're sleeping. So you want that as far away from you as possible.
Okay.
There's a great chap called Ben Greenfield, who is an ex-Ironman triathlete, who's also a biohacker, life hacker.
Right.
He's just built himself a house which has got EMF shielding in it. So all the cables in the walls actually are shielded so that you don't get negative, what they call dirty energy in your space, because that can negatively influence things and sometimes can cause cancer. So they've demonstrated that people who live under power lines are far more likely to get cancers. That's thought to be electromagnetic forces. And we know that if you put 2 iPhones with an egg between, you can cook an egg by calling them.
Really?
And so there's a lot of radiation there. So from an EMF point of view, get the phone away from you.
Right, okay.
Get a smaller phone that's just texty, that's just a cally phone.
Right.
But allocate time to do the rest.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
It sounds scary, but we should do scary things, shouldn't we?
We
should.
That
might be my scary thing for today. Yes, thank you.
So I'd love for you to come back in a few months' time and tell me how you've got on.
Right, okay, that's
and
proper
we can workshop this again. There we go, because you're into authenticity and accountability, Chris.
Yeah.
So I would love to find how you're getting on with that, because I think actually it might win you back some quality sleep, and you may find that then your fitness and everything else improves.
Right, thank you for that.
Great. So, Chris, it's been so interesting talking to you today. You've had a fascinating life. What I love is that in the second half of your life, you've turned it around. You've done what so many people want to do. How old are you now?
I'm 65.
Excellent. So you've got a few years yet to get to 100.
Yeah, 35. I've got a 35-year plan.
So you're just over halfway there.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see you again and see how you got on with these tips. But it's been great to chat to you today. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ben.
So I do hope you enjoyed today's episode of Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben, and I hope it may help you improve your life and health. You can also take one easy step by achieving that right now by subscribing free on your usual podcast platform. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me on podcast@drfinlays.co.uk. I hope you'll join me again, but for now it's goodbye from me, Dr. Ben.